The vast observation chamber aboard the Nexus Collective's flagship hummed with psychic energy as the Council of Elders convened their emergency session. The crystalline walls pulsed with swirling colors, reflecting the mounting anxiety of the gathered species. At the center of the chamber, Supreme Elder Viraxis, his translucent form shimmering with bioluminescent patterns, addressed the assembly. The human problem can no longer be ignored. Viraxis projected his thoughts directly into the minds of the gathered representatives. In mere centuries, they'd progressed from primitive combustion engines to quantum manipulation. Their military development is particularly concerning. The chamber darkened as a holographic projection materialized, showing Earth's rapidly expanding colonial presence. Dozens of worlds, hundreds of outposts, all established in less than 2 centuries. The speed of human advancement was unprecedented in galactic history. Elder Quantum, her crystalline form tinted with worry, stepped forward. They've already discovered principles of psychic shielding. Crude, yes, but effective. Our ability to guide their development through subtle manipulation diminishes each cycle. Then we must act now, before they grow beyond our control, came the forceful thoughts of War Master Zenith, his obsidian form crackling with barely contained energy. The humans must be contained. The Council's discussion was interrupted by an urgent transmission. A human fleet had just destroyed a collective observation post in the Proxima system. The humans had somehow detected their cloaked facility and eliminated it without warning. Viraxis's form pulsed with dark colors. They're advancing faster than our models predicted. We must implement the quarantine immediately. The collective's plan was elegant in its simplicity. They would establish a psychic barrier around human space, cutting off their colonies from Earth and each other. The barrier would scramble human FTL communications and navigation, effectively trapping them in isolated pockets. Without coordination, the humans would be forced to submit to collective guidance. The massive collective fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, surrounding Earth's core systems. Their ships, massive crystalline structures that defied conventional physics, began generating the psychic barrier. But the humans had been preparing for this moment. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the EFS Defiant, watching the alien fleet's deployment. Her scared face remained impassive as she received reports from Earth's hidden sensor network. The collected ships were exactly where Strategic Command had predicted they would be. They're so confident in their superiority that they're following textbook containment procedures, Chen remarked to her XO, Commander David Rodriguez. Ready Operation Blackout. Rodriguez nodded grimly. All ships report ready, Admiral. The collective won't know what hit them. Chen allowed herself a small smile. The oldest species in the galaxy, and they never considered that we might have been watching them back. Signal all ships. Execute blackout. Across human space, thousands of hidden satellites activated simultaneously. They didn't target the collective ships with conventional weapons. Instead, they began broadcasting on frequencies that the humans had discovered were harmonic to psychic energy. The effect was immediate and devastating. The collective ship's perfect formation began to break apart as their crews screamed in psychic agony. Their sophisticated technology, dependent on psychic control, started to malfunction. They thought we would rely on brute force, Chen observed as the collective fleet descended into chaos. They never imagined we'd turn their greatest strength into a weakness. The human fleet emerged from hiding, their ships equipped with conventional controls rather than the psychic interfaces the collective relied upon. As they opened fire on the disoriented alien vessels, Shen opened a channel to the collective flagship. Supreme Elder Viraxis, she transmitted on all frequencies. This is Admiral Chen of the Earth Fleet. You thought you could contain us because we're young. But you forgot something crucial about human nature. Through the psychic interference, Viraxis managed to respond. What could we possibly have overlooked? We've spent our entire history fighting against those who underestimated us, Chen replied. And we gotten very, very good at it. This is your only warning. Withdraw your forces immediately, or learn firsthand why every species that's ever tried to conquer humanity has regretted it. The collective's response would determine whether this became a brief skirmish or the beginning of a war that would reshape the galaxy. Either way, humanity had sent its message. We will not be contained. As the collective fleet retreated in disarray, Chen looked at the battle damage reports. They had destroyed 30% of the alien ships, while losing only a handful of their own. More importantly, they had shattered the collective's aura of invincibility. Send word to all colonies, Chen ordered. Operation Blackout was successful, but this is just the beginning. The collective won't take this humiliation lightly. She was right. The galaxy's oldest civilization had just learned that humanity wasn't merely another species to be guided and controlled. They were something far more dangerous. An enemy who had spent millennia preparing for exactly this kind of fight. The war for humanity's future was about to begin. The collective's emergency council chamber was in chaos. For the first time in thousands of years, the ancient species faced an enemy that had not only survived their first strike, but had counterattacked successfully. Supreme Elder Virax's form flickered with distress as he absorbed the damage reports. Impossible, War Master Zenith projected, his thoughts tinged with rage. They shouldn't have been able to detect our psychic signatures, let alone disrupt them. How did they develop this technology without our knowledge? Elder Quantum's crystalline form pulsed with troubled light. We've discovered something disturbing. The humans didn't just recently develop these countermeasures. They'd been preparing them for centuries. The holographic display showed hundreds of seemingly innocuous human research projects spanning decades. Meditation studies, neurological research, experiments in electromagnetic field manipulation, all carefully designed to appear unrelated. But when combined, they revealed a deliberate program to understand and counter psychic abilities. They knew about us, Viraxis realized. All this time, while we thought we were secretly observing them. They were studying us. Zenith completed the thought. And now they're using everything they learned against us. Meanwhile, aboard the human military command station Olympus, Admiral Chen was briefing Earth's military leadership on humanity's next move. The station's reinforced walls were lined with psychic dampening technology, ensuring complete privacy from collective surveillance. The collective is regrouping, Chen reported, gesturing to the tactical display. They're abandoning their traditional crystal ship designs in favor of conventional materials that are less vulnerable to our psychic disruption. General Marcus Way, commander of Earth's ground forces, leaned forward. They're adapting faster than expected, but that's exactly what we wanted. Dr. Maya Patel, head of Project Silence, nodded in agreement. Every change they make to counter our disruption technology pulls them further from their strengths. They're being forced to fight on our terms. The tactical display updated, showing the collective's new fleet movements. They were gathering a massive force, easily 3 times the size of their first attack fleet. But the composition was different. Smaller ships, conventional weapons, minimal psychic enhancement. They think they figured us out, Chen observed. That we can only disrupt their psychic technology. They haven't realized that was just phase 1. Dr. Potil activated a secure hologram showing humanity's next weapon. Project Silence is ready for deployment. While they've been rushing to abandon their psychic tech, we've been preparing something they can't defend against. The hologram showed what appeared to be standard human missiles. But these weapons contained something revolutionary. Quantum-encoded psychic patterns designed to interact with the collective's natural psychic abilities. Their ships might be conventionally powered now, Paddle explained, but their crews still rely on psychic communication. These weapons won't target their technology. They'll target the collective themselves. General Wei's expression was grim. You're talking about psychic warfare, attacking their minds directly. They tried to cage humanity, Chen replied firmly. Now they'll learn why that was a mistake. Begin mass production of the silence weapons and activate our sleeper agents. Throughout collective space, seemingly ordinary human merchants, diplomats, and refugees began their real work. For years, they had been planting small devices in collective facilities. These devices weren't weapons, they were transmitters, waiting for the signal to begin broadcasting patterns that would interfere with the collective's psychic communication networks. On the collective's capital world, Supreme Elder Varaxis felt a growing sense of unease. The humans were too quiet, their fleet movements too predictable. Centuries of experience told him they were planning something, but the collective's psychic precognitives couldn't pierce the veil of humanity's defenses. "Launch the attack," he ordered finally. "Overwhelm their defenses with conventional forces. Show them that the collective doesn't rely solely on psychic power." The massive collective fleet jumped into human space, ready for battle. But as they approached Earth's defense line, their crews began experiencing something terrifying. Silence. Not just communication silence, but a deep personal silence that cut them off from the psychic connection they had known since birth. Admiral Chen watched from the Defiant as the collective fleet's formation began to break down. Without their psychic abilities, the alien crews were struggling to coordinate their actions. The trap was sprung. "All ships, execute attack pattern Delta," she ordered. "Show them what humanity does to those who threaten our freedom." The battle that followed wasn't just a military engagement. It was a demonstration of humanity's ability to turn an enemy's strength into their greatest weakness. The collective's mighty fleet, stripped of both their advanced technology and their natural abilities, faced an enemy that had spent centuries preparing for this exact moment. As the collective ships began to retreat in disarray, Chen broadcast one final message. "Consider this our response to your attempted quarantine. We will not be contained, we will not be controlled, and we're just getting started." The message was clear. Humanity wasn't fighting just to survive. They were fighting to ensure that no species would ever again think they could dominate Earth. The collective had wanted to teach humanity its place in the galaxy. Instead, they were learning a harsh lesson about underestimating their youngest adversary. The war was entering a new phase, and humanity was holding the initiative. The collective's Grand Archive, a vast crystalline structure that had recorded the history of the galaxy for millions of years, now held only silence. The psychic network that had connected countless generations lay dormant, its users too afraid to reach out with their minds. Supreme Elder Varaxis stood before the Council of Elders, his form dim with despair. "We have lost contact with 30% of our outer worlds," he reported. "The human disruption technology has evolved. It's not just blocking our communications, it's spreading like a virus through our psychic network." Elder Quantum's usually brilliant form had dulled to a pale glow. "Our scientists have discovered something terrifying. The humans aren't just blocking our abilities. They're using our own psychic network to transmit memories." The chamber filled with murmurs of confusion and fear. War Master Zenith stepped forward, his obsidian form cracked with stress lines. "What memories?" "Human memories," Quantum replied. "Every defeat they've ever suffered. Every victory they've clawed from the jaws of extinction. Every moment of defiance against superior forces. And with each transmission, more of our people are experiencing something we haven't felt in millennia: doubt." Meanwhile, aboard the ESS Defiant, Admiral Chen was reviewing the latest success reports with Dr. Petal. The scientist's Project Silence had evolved far beyond its original scope. The collective's greatest weakness, Petal explained, isn't their reliance on psychic technology. It's their absolute certainty in their own superiority. By forcing them to experience human memories of overcoming impossible odds, we're not just attacking their communication, we're attacking their worldview. Chen studied the data scrolling across her screen. "How are they responding?" "Exactly as predicted," Petal replied with grim satisfaction. "Their society is built on the assumption that age equals wisdom, that their millions of years of existence make them inherently superior. But now they're experiencing first-hand memories of humanity repeatedly proving that assumption wrong. Their younger generations are beginning to question everything." On the collective's homeworld, that questioning had turned to open dissent. Young members of various species gathered in secret, their minds carefully shielded from the elders. They shared forbidden thoughts. What if the humans were right? What if age and power didn't grant the right to control others? The collective's response was harsh and immediate. Any member suspected of harboring pro-human sentiments was isolated, cut off from the psychic network. But this only served to prove humanity's point about the collective's tyranny. Admiral Chen received an unexpected transmission from a group calling themselves the Free Minds Coalition, young collective members seeking asylum in human space. It was an opportunity she had been waiting for. "Begin Operation Truth," she ordered. "It's time to show the galaxy what the collective really is." Across collective space, hidden human transmitters activated, broadcasting not weapons or disruption signals, but simple truth. Historical records showing how the collective had manipulated younger species for millions of years. Evidence of civilizations erased because they developed too quickly or questioned too much. The effect was devastating. The collective's carefully maintained image of benevolent guardians crumbled. More importantly, their own people began to see them for what they were. Not wise elders preserving galactic stability, but fearful tyrants desperately clinging to power. In the collective's emergency command center, War Master Zenith watched in horror as more ships deserted, their crews choosing exile over continued service to the elders. "We must strike now," he urged, "before we lose more forces. Hit their major colonies with everything we have left. Show them and our own people the price of defiance." But Supreme Elder Viraxis had finally begun to understand the true nature of their defeat. "You still don't see it, do you? This was never about military victory. The humans knew they couldn't match our technology, so they found something more powerful to target: our beliefs." On the bridge of the Defiant, Chen received word that the collective's fleet was mobilizing for a massive strike. But she wasn't worried. Their enemy was fighting with broken morale, fractured unity, and a growing certainty that they were on the wrong side of history. "Let them come," she ordered. "Every attack they launch, every world they threaten, only proves to their own people that we were right about them all along." The war had entered its final phase, but the real victory wasn't being won in space. It was being won in the minds of millions of collective citizens who were beginning to ask dangerous questions. What if everything we believed was wrong? What if the humans, in their defiance, were actually teaching us something we had forgotten? The galaxy was about to learn that the most powerful weapon humanity possessed wasn't their technology or their tactics. It was their ability to inspire others to fight for freedom. The massive stellar map in Earth's strategic command showed an unprecedented sight: collective territory collapsing in real time, not from military conquest, but from within. Entire sectors were declaring independence, protected by former collective ships, now crewed by those who had chosen to defect. Admiral Chen stood with Earth's military council, watching the dissolution of an empire that had lasted millions of years. "The Free Minds Coalition now controls 20% of former collective space," she reported. "More importantly, they're sharing their technology with us." General Wei studied the tactical readouts from their new allies. The collective's leadership is desperate. They're abandoning outer systems, pulling everything back to defend their core worlds. "Our intelligence suggests they're planning something big." "They are," confirmed Dr. Patel, entering the chamber with urgent data. "Our deep cover agents report they're activating something called the Ancestral Archive. Technology so old even most of the collective thought it was just a myth." The room grew quiet. Humanity had learned to be wary of the collective's ancient technologies. But this felt different. Not a weapon, but a last resort. At that moment, in the depths of the collective's capital world, Supreme Elder Viraxis stood before a massive crystalline structure that pulsed with the accumulated psychic energy of millions of years. The Ancestral Archive contained the preserved consciousness of every elder who had ever led the collective. "The humans leave us no choice," he transmitted to the remaining council. "We must awaken the ancestors. Their combined wisdom will show us how to defeat this threat." War Master Zenith, his form now deeply cracked from constant stress, objected. "The archive hasn't been opened in 1,000,000 years. We don't know what effect such ancient minds will have on our modern network." But Viraxis had already made his decision. The archive activated, and billions of ancient consciousness patterns flooded into the collective's psychic network. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The ancestors, awakening to a galaxy vastly different from the one they knew, reacted with shock and anger. Their rigid, ancient thought patterns crashed against millions of years of cultural evolution. Instead of providing wisdom, they brought chaos. Aboard the Defiant, Chen received urgent transmissions from their allies in the Free Minds Coalition. "The collective's psychic network is in chaos," reported Lyra, a young defector who now served as their primary liaison. "The ancestors, they're trying to force every collective member back to their original cultural programming. It's causing widespread psychological trauma." Chen saw the opportunity immediately. This is it, their final mistake. Send word to all fleets. Execute Operation Legacy. Across former collective space, human ships and their free mind allies began broadcasting a carefully crafted message. Not an attack this time, but an offer. Sanctuary. Any collective member who wished to escape the ancestors' crushing mental dominance would be welcomed in free space. The response exceeded all predictions. The collective's rigid hierarchical structure, already strained by human disruption and internal dissent, shattered completely. Younger members flood by the billions, unable to bear the psychological weight of minds from an age when their species had been little more than slaves to the elders. In the collective's capital, Viraxis watched in horror as the very weapon he had hoped would save them instead became the instrument of their final defeat. The ancestors, unable to comprehend or accept a galaxy where their absolute authority was questioned, began turning on their own descendants. "Shut it down," he ordered desperately. "Close the archive." But it was too late. The damage was done. The collective's psychic network, the foundation of their society for millions of years, had become a battlefield between past and present. Admiral Chen stood on the Defiance Bridge, watching the final phase of humanity's strategy unfold. They hadn't needed to destroy the collective. They had merely needed to force them to confront their own history. "All ships, move to containment positions," she ordered. "Protect the refugee corridors. Any collective vessel attempting to prevent evacuations is to be disabled." The war was ending not with a climactic battle, but with an exodus. Humanity, the species the collective had tried to contain, had become the guardian of their people's freedom. The irony was not lost on anyone. Lyra, working from her station on the Defiant, transmitted a final message to her former people. "The collective taught us that age brings wisdom. Humanity taught us that wisdom comes from growth, from change, from the courage to question what we've always believed. Choose now which lesson you will follow." As the refugee ships streamed into human space, Chen realized that humanity had achieved something far greater than military victory. They had proven that the strength of a civilization wasn't measured in years or technology, but in its ability to adapt, to question, and to change. The galaxy would never be the same. In the heart of what had once been the greatest empire the galaxy had ever known, Supreme Elder Viraxis stood alone in the council chamber. The once brilliant crystalline walls were dark, their psychic resonance silenced. The ancestral archive, meant to be their salvation, had become their undoing. The last status report sat heavily in his consciousness. 80% of the collective's population had fled. The mighty civilization that had guided the galaxy for millions of years now controlled only their core systems, their authority broken not by military might, but by the power of choice. On the observation deck of the EFS Defiant, Admiral Chen watched the final preparations for Operation Awakening. The combined fleet of human and free mind ships stretched into the distance, a testament to how much had changed in so short a time. Final report from deep cover agents, Commander Rodriguez announced. The remaining collective hardliners are gathering their forces at the capital. They're planning to use the archive as a weapon. Dr. Patel's face paled. They're going to try to force every psychic being in range back under their control. The psychological damage would be catastrophic. They still don't understand, Chen said quietly. Even now, they think the solution is more control. She opened a channel to the fleet. All ships, battle positions. We're ending this. The combined fleet moved into position around the collective capital system. But instead of charging in, they began deploying a new type of device. Psychic resonance beacons developed through collaboration between human scientists and free mind engineers. In the capital, Viraxis felt the change first. The beacons weren't attacking or disrupting. They were simply broadcasting. Broadcasting the truth, not through forced memory transfers or psychological warfare, but through pure, unfiltered reality. The remaining collective members saw their history as it truly was, not the carefully curated version they had maintained for millions of years, but the real story. Their rise from humble beginnings, their early struggles, their achievements, and their gradual descent into fearful tyranny. You see now, don't you? Chen's transmission reached every corner of collective space. The very thing you feared in us, our capacity for rapid growth and change. It's not a weakness. It's the greatest strength any species can have. Aboard the Defiant, Lyra worked with other Free Mind members to stabilize the psychic network as the truth resonated through it. The ancestors weren't gods, she transmitted. They were people, just like us. People who faced challenges, made mistakes, and sometimes chose fear over hope. In the capital, the last defenders of the old order made their final mistake. They activated the Archive's weapon protocols, attempting to force compliance through sheer psychic power. But the combined fleet was ready. The beacons shifted frequency, not blocking the Archive's power, but redirecting it. The accumulated wisdom of millions of years flowed not as a weapon of control, but as a fountain of knowledge freely shared. The effect was transformative. The very history the collective had tried to use as a weapon became a tool of healing. Young and old, loyal and rebel, all experienced the true journey of their civilization, its triumphs and failures, its wisdom and its mistakes. The Archive is stabilizing, Paddle reported. The psychic network, it's restructuring itself, becoming something new. On the capital world, Viraxis watched as the crystalline towers began to pulse with new light, not the rigid, controlled patterns of old, but a dynamic, ever-changing flow of shared consciousness. He finally understood. We thought our age made us wise, he transmitted to Chen. But you taught us that true wisdom lies in the courage to change. The collective surrenders and asks for humanity's help in building something new. The war ended not with the destruction of an ancient empire, but with its transformation. The collective became the Union, a federation of free worlds where wisdom was measured not by age, but by the willingness to learn and grow. Admiral Chen stood with representatives from Earth and the former collective worlds as they signed the new charter. Humanity, the species they had tried to contain, had become the catalyst for the greatest change in galactic history. Let this be remembered, she said to the assembled delegates, not as the day an empire fell, but as the day we all learned that the future belongs not to those who cling to power, but to those who dare to imagine something better. As ships from 100 worlds celebrated in orbit around Earth, Chen looked out at the stars. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge not through superior firepower or advanced technology, but through their most fundamental traits: adaptability, creativity, and the unshakable belief that every being deserved the right to choose their own path. The galaxy had changed forever, and it had changed because humanity, the youngest of spacefaring species, had taught the oldest a lesson they had forgotten. True strength lies not in controlling the future, but in having the courage to embrace it. The stars seemed brighter somehow, as if reflecting the dawn of a new age. An age where wisdom and power would be measured not in years, but in the capacity for growth, change, and hope. The price of pride had been paid, and from its ashes, something greater had emerged.